Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the garden. If you're new here, hi, I'm Bree. I live in Kansas Zone 7A, and today I'm going to give you a tour of my backyard garden here in the month of October for the very last time of the 2024 season. So I've been doing these garden tours every single month since April of this year, so you've been really able to see how much the garden has changed and evolved over the last 6 months. Right now, the Loofah trellis is the one thing that is really thriving at the moment, but we're going to actually jump to the front of the garden where I've started a lot of these garden tours, and I'm going to show you how things are looking around here. So let's go ahead and jump right in. In the front, we have my cantaloupe trellis, which I also think you can see my honeydew trellis at the moment, and these were officially hit with powdery mildew. So they are on their way out. I only have a handful of melons still ripening, but I have had such a good cantaloupe year. We've been getting cantaloupes almost every week since sometime around beginning to mid-July, and I just have a few more left. So I haven't done anything with this powdery mildew. The plants really aren't looking so hot at this point, but they are still producing cantaloupe nonetheless. One thing I'm trying to figure out with this front space currently is where will I be planting my garlic? So I'm almost thinking I might move this front trellis and plant them here in the front 2 beds. I had them in the back 2 beds over here. I kind of have to play with my sunlight a little bit, especially this time of year when it comes to the garden. So I'm trying to figure that out. There's not too many places I could plant my garlic at the moment, but there's a lot of stuff that needs to come out. I still have some zinnias right here. They're looking not so hot, but there has been so many hummingbirds and also monarch butterflies going after some of these flowers I have here that don't look so hot. So I'm gonna keep them until we have frost, just because this is a food source for butterflies, bees, and things like that. And I don't have so many pockets of flowers at this point, so whatever I do have, I'm just leaving so that way they can get a little snack. But let me show you a little closer up of the inside of the cantaloupe trellis, because the outside doesn't look terrible. I mean, it's definitely getting more powdery mildew, but the moment you walk inside, you can really tell what has all died. The cantaloupe trellis has really died. This is a variety called Howell's Jumbo. I have found other melons to be so tricky. I have honeydew over there that we'll get into in a minute, but also watermelon and whatever else I've tried. Cantaloupe is the only thing I have found that naturally slips off the vine to where you're not playing a guessing game to know if it's ripe or not. So if you found melons to be kind of difficult to grow, highly suggest giving cantaloupe a try, especially if you're getting into gardening and you've never gardened before. I honestly don't think you can go wrong with cantaloupe, and you can't go wrong with the Howell's Jumbo. You get some super, super big melons off the bat. Now I have a lot of smaller ones because we're on the second, third wave of these melons at this point, but they're still really good size. So if you're in a small backyard garden like me and you're trying to really get the most out of your space, highly suggest this variety. But you can see the inside of this trellis is definitely not looking so hot. The outside of this trellis isn't looking so hot, and we only have a few more weeks. Corn is officially gone. I have a bunch of these sunflower stalks that I need to deal with, honestly. So we have some okra still here. The plants got pretty tall. Honestly, if I was standing side by side, they'd probably be my height. Looks like I did miss an okra though, so I like to try to harvest the okras when they're closer to this size, around like 3 inches or so, because that's kind of what's recommended for pickling. They're also the more like tender at that point. At this point, they're very woody and they're almost more hollow. This one's actually probably started to produce its seeds, which I love the look of okra seeds. They're just these like little round little dollops. They kind of look like Dippin' Dots. But we have a bunch of different herbs over here, and then here is our lettuce, which you can clearly see has started to bolt. I want to say I've only had maybe 1 or 2 successful fall gardens. Fall gardens for me tend to be trickier because the sun really shifts toward the south, and my garden runs from east to west like this, and my house blocks the sun, and then I have a maple tree over here, and this time of year the maple tree really blocks out a lot of sun. But my problem is we've also still just stayed warm. Our August really cooled down, and then toward the end of August into September we really didn't cool back down. We were staying relatively pretty warm slash hot. The day before our first day of fall was like high 90s, and the day before that we hit 102. Our first day of fall though, we ended up getting a cool front come in and a ton of rain, and we definitely have dipped from there, but we're still in the 80s for the most part for our daytime highs. And at this point the lettuce is always one of those first things to bolt if it stays warm. So unfortunately, it's not looking like we're gonna have much lettuce, because I also had a lot of issues with my lettuce germinating when I replanted it out. So what I'm gonna do actually is I have a bunch of grow lights in my basement from seed starting, and over the winter time I tend to like to plant fodder or wheatgrass for my chickens and my cats, and I've done like variations of lettuce and microgreens and things like that. So I actually plan to order a bunch of seeds later today to kind of restock, because I used up so much of my stock this year, which was the goal. I had some old seeds in there, but I want to get some lettuce, and I'm going to just sow those into some of my trays, and I'm just going to grow lettuce and spinach that way in my basement, because I also had a lot of issues getting my spinach started, and hopefully that way I just have a source of greens throughout the winter. But my carrots are doing quite well, and I have some collards and some cabbage. I will say I honestly can't believe how much is still in this garden at this time. I honestly don't think I've had this much variety in my garden at all come October. We had a really great gardening year. This will probably go down as one of my best gardening years I have ever had. And I think the weather plays a big role, but I also think I did a good job of making sure I fertilized everything really well and did soil amendments, soil testing and things like that. And I think that played a huge difference. But let's talk about this honeydew. So I have found honeydew to be very, very tricky. This is one of those things I really don't know if I'm gonna grow again. I was really, really hyped about honeydew this year. Honeydew has always been one of my favorite melons. I'm like, why have I not tried to grow it before? And now I kind of know why I didn't try to grow it before, because I've had issues with watermelon, and this is just so similar. So it doesn't naturally detach from the vine like cantaloupe. I did have someone make a comment on one of my videos over summer saying that Johnny's has a hybrid honeydew that's supposed to naturally slip. So maybe I'll give that a try. I wish all melons naturally slipped off the vine, because it'd make my life so much easier. Honestly, I just don't have a ton of space to devote to something like this where it's going to be hit or miss all the time. I think I had one decent honeydew out of probably the 15 to 20 I have harvested. I luckily enough have chickens that don't care if a melon is hard. So it's one of those things where I'm able to give them a treat, which I really don't mind. But this has just been one of those things that has been super disappointing. And I was looking forward to this probably the most out of most of the new things I tried in my garden this year. So not too happy. There's some indicators that give you the signs that your melon's supposed to be ready. There's a color change that happens with honeydew where they go from green to slightly more of like a pale, like neutral yellowy tone. They're also supposed to have the indicator where the tendril dies back, and then you can also press up on the melon, and if it's slightly soft it should be good to go. I've tried all three of those things, and I still keep getting melons that just aren't what I expected. So I'm just not too happy about this really at all this year. Randomly looked down, and this is either some type of melon or loofah over here starting to sprout at the moment, which is really cool to see. But let's give you guys a better look into this trellis here. So this one definitely does not look that great either. You can see how much this one's dying back with all the disease it has, but we still have good, decent size melons just chilling. And I need to pick a few. I'm thinking this one's getting really close to being ready. Oh, this one cracked. I didn't even notice that. Okay. Oh, well, okay. There we go. Let's give this to the chickens as a little morning snack. Girls, I got melon. Who wants melon? Melon? There you go. And honestly, that is the other problem I had with the honeydew this year, is we kept getting like influxes of rain. We've been in a drought, but we kept getting influxes of rain, and it would cause these melons to crack. before they were ready either. So it's just been very, very difficult. So I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. I still have right around 21 honeydews. On this side of the trellis, I have some collards and some cabbages. I have a bunch of different peppers still, and it looks like I have a bell pepper over there that I need to get. It's also, there's a melon there that I forgot to show you guys, and either a raccoon or something got that last night. Most of my bell peppers are like right over here though. But over here is some of my bok choy. I feel like the bok choy is finally starting to grow a little bit more. It was very slow there for a while. We have some more zinnias that are really starting to spend out. I'll save these for some seeds. And then I have all of my jalapenos, and I have one tomato plant over here, and I should probably go ahead and pull these. So I am still getting tomatoes, which this is probably one of my better tomato years, to be honest. Like, we've had such an amazing tomato year compared to the last few that I'm just so happy about this. But all of my jalapenos have been turning red. I just harvested a ton of them, but I've been making sriracha. I just made a bunch of freeze-dried red jalapeno powder, and I'm just gonna keep letting these turn red. I might do one more round of sriracha, but I've been really loving these, and they've been doing so well for me this year. Still have some more tomatoes, which since these are starting to blush, I'm just gonna go ahead and pull them because I have had some issues with some caterpillars and squirrels. I saw a few of my tomatoes I've been waiting on get ate last night. They'll finish ripening on my counter. So I should probably go through and do a little bit of harvesting. But I do have some sugar snap peas, and these are starting to produce like crazy. I want to say I planted these sometime the end of July, maybe beginning of August, and they're just really starting to produce. So I need to definitely make a stir fry soon. This whole side of the trellis feels so bare now. I had a ton of sunflowers here, and I had a big volunteer one over here, and I finally got them all cut down and ripped out, and I feel like I have so much room for activities now because this was just such a cluster of chaos over the summer. It was a beautiful cluster, but a cluster nonetheless. All right, let's talk loofah trellis. So the loofahs this year went absolutely crazy. There's more loofahs on this trellis this year than I've ever had. The one thing I'm going to be curious about is how many of them will actually mature and dry out on the vine. I actually have a good amount at the moment. Like this one here, you can see the color difference. The moment they turn this lighter yellow color, you have about a week and a half left. And I have a lot of them turning to the yellow. I have a few that have really dried out, but I had a lot of these get put on the trellis toward the beginning of August. So it's really going to depend on when our first frost comes, where we'll see if all these mature on the vine or not. If not, I'm still thinking I'm going to have a really good amount. Last time I did a count, we had over 60 still on the plant, and I already harvested roughly like 5 to 6 for the year. I have not harvested a single loofah, I want to say, in weeks at this point. We are in one of those transition periods, but I have a decent amount that are turning. Like this one will be done this week. I have 3 down here that are ready. So I'm about to do a really big loofah harvest, and loofah is just one of my favorite things. Like, look how magical and fun this trellis space is. It's honestly my favorite part, because at this time of year, there's so much that doesn't look beautiful or whimsical in the garden, especially toward the end of the season. But the loofah trellis always holds on, and it makes me so happy to have something just so unique and different and just super fun. So I love this space so much. I also have some green beans, and I need to go through and pull the green beans. So I planted these green beans, I want to say end of April, beginning or May, and they gave me a huge flush in June. And then through July and August, they pretty much were just not producing. We were so hot that these plants would flower, but then they would just shoot out little beans and they just wouldn't grow. So I still left the beans because that's typical for green beans. They don't deal with heat stress that well. But since these were a pole bean variety, I left them and they've been producing like crazy. I've probably gotten 4 to 5 pounds in just the last few weeks that I've been able to throw in the freezer as well. So I definitely think this year was my green bean redemption year. I actually really enjoy having a pole bean variety over a bush bean variety, because a bush bean, they tend to produce and then they die back and they don't have that second wave like I got with the pole bean. I grew a variety called Seychelles, which I really liked. It's a stringless variety as well. I'll definitely be growing those again, but this is my favorite little space and it always makes me so sad when it's gone, because this is a 20-foot trellis that's along my back fence, and it's one of those things that gives me a lot of privacy during the summer months, because again, I am filming myself in my backyard and I have neighbors, so I often get the question, what do I do with all of this loofah? So I did try to eat it this year, which I really liked. I would say it's definitely a zucchini replacement when they are smaller. I just overall love to make these into little scrub brushes, gift them for holidays. Earlier this year, I made a chicken nesting pad. That nest pad has been doing so well for me. I told you guys I'd give you updates on it. So we are approaching, I want to say 3 months, give or take, with the nest pad that I made. So my previous nest pads with the chickens might last me 3 to 4 weeks, and I was really thinking the way that these are like weaved together, I felt like the structure would just last so much longer. So there's a few tweaks I want to do with the nest pad, but overall it's still holding up completely fine to where I wouldn't need to replace it. But I am going to do some few minor tweaks, and I think it will be just game changer from there. And I will probably keep making nest pads, because I might only need to make 2 per year with the amount of chickens I have. And I love that little resource, being able to grow something in my backyard and then use it for my chickens. I love being able to do the little things like that, and it just makes me really happy. I will be making little scrubbers for Christmas and things like that, but I'll also be making nest pads. I love doing that. Here's some of the beautiful beans that I really need to pick today. I also still have a few tomatoes over here hanging on. Here's one of the tomatoes that got ate overnight. So over here I have all of my broccoli. I have some kale as well. I did harvest all of my sweet potatoes with you guys last week, which I was not mad about. I was actually pretty impressed with the harvest. It could have been slightly better. I think I might need to add a little bit of sand to the soil to make it maybe a little bit more loose, but overall way better than the year I did prior, and I grew my own slips. So considering I bought a few random sweet potatoes from the grocery store and I was able to get 17 pounds, I'm not mad. So I had a bunch of those volunteer sunflowers over here, and I did go ahead and take them down. They were all going to seed, and I didn't want a ton of seeds spreading everywhere. But when I did that, I ended up probably knocking a ton of caterpillars everywhere. I did not realize how much these sunflowers were just infested with caterpillars. And a few days after doing that, I had so many caterpillars all over the broccoli. I've been hand picking like cabbage moss and things like that. Like these were other types of caterpillars, and I can't remember what they are, but they're more of like a black and blue, black and yellow type of caterpillar, and they made my broccoli not look so hot. So I'm needing to go back through probably when I get done with this video and check for cabbage worms again. I've been checking these plants every few days. They did get a little bit of holey, but they should rebound. I probably should have put some insect netting on them, but I didn't. So let me give you a little closer of a look. You can see just kind of how holey things are. They're all fine. Oh, see, speaking of, right there, there's a cabbage worm. So we're just gonna grab this guy and let's give it to the chickens. So I don't mind hand picking for the point I'm able to give like a little snack to my chickens, but it is a little bit more tedious than spraying anything, just because you do have to check on this stuff so often. But you can see things definitely got a little bit holey over here, but I'm thinking everything will be just fine as long as I keep up with it. I also have more broccoli over here, and I started these, I want to say sometime like end of June, beginning of July, and they're all doing pretty well. Oh, there's one of the caterpillars I was telling you about. So this is that caterpillar that was just really taking over all of my sunflowers. So it's just showing that I need to go through that later today. This is a variety called Bell Star that I've had really, really good luck with. They're supposed to be more of a stress-resistant broccoli, and I've been able to get decent broccoli heads off of them, so it's my variety of choice at this point. So I have hibiscus over here, and these ones took a while compared to the one I have up front to start producing, just because this is a little bit shadier of an area, but you can see they are putting on their blooms, and we're starting to get some of the little pods that we use for tea. My little zinnia garden over here is definitely going crazy. I'm almost thinking I might want to try to plant either wheat over here, or I might use this space for some of my cool weather crops next year, but I'm gonna have a ton of zinnias going to seed of them and just save a bunch of seed, because this was a bunch of seed from different zinnias I saved in a few random packets, and I was curious to see how it would do, and it did very, very well. That area where I have the zinnias is one of those locations that's been very tricky for me over the years. I've tried to put a trellis space over there, and it was just a little too shady for that. I was curious about the zinnias, and the zinnias did way better than I thought, to where I'm almost wondering if that location gets better sun in the second half than the first half of the season. And that's just something I'm going to take a note of. And that's one reason why I grew the zinnias, kind of just as a placement test to see, is it sunny enough to grow something or is it not? And clearly it's sunny enough to grow something. So I'm going to have to try to figure out that space a little bit more. I've been trying to figure out that space now, I want to say, for 3 years, and it's been one of those spaces that's been so tricky because I have multiple trees right there and the way the sun shifts throughout the season, so we'll see. But I have all of my peppers and tomatoes here. So like I said, I have a lot of my bell peppers over here. It's looking like I need to do a little bit of a harvest this morning and pick off caterpillars when I'm done, but great pepper year. I've been able to get so many peppers. I'm at the point now where I'm just making different pepper powders, and I'm playing around with pepper blends. Like I said, this morning my freeze dryer got done and I had a ton of red jalapenos that I made into like a red jalapeno powder, and things like that. But overall, I am having some issues with some of these tomatoes. With caterpillars, of course. When I took down all of those sunflowers, it was like out of nowhere, the caterpillars had nowhere to go and they started to attack a few things, but it was nice because they just kind of went after the sunflowers and I didn't really have an issue all season long. But yeah, these are just getting toward the end, and we'll see how many tomatoes I really get. I'm already impressed with the tomato year I had. Again, one of my best tomato years I've had probably entirely, with having a slightly cooler season. So going back to the warmer, cooler season, I've been telling you guys all year it's been a cooler season, but when I look at my temperature blanket, we really haven't been a cooler season. We just didn't have pockets of extreme heat. Like last year at the beginning of August, we had over a week of over 100s, and that knocked out so much stuff by September. If you go to September's garden tour of 2023, this garden has maybe a third of what it currently has in, and that's where I'm saying, like, this garden this year really held on. There's still so much variety in October, which kind of just completely shocks me, but overall, great tomato year. I was really impressed with the variety called Inca Jules. Inca Jules was one of the new ones for me this year. Supremo still performed really well for me, and then I also have some classic Romas. But as far as peppers go, I have cayennes, serranos, bananas, bell peppers, poblanos. I have a snacking pepper and also paprikas, and then all of my jalapenos are over there. And I really liked this area for the peppers. I was really unsure about this area at first, because this is one of my like shadier-ish locations, but I put them here because the previous 2 years I had a lot of issues with sun scald and the peppers just getting too much sun and then like burning, and this area worked out phenomenal. You might be able to see, like, I have so many really beautiful tomatoes still on these plants, to where I'm really hoping that we still have another 3 to 4 weeks and some of these will really start changing a little bit. Here's the snacking peppers. They're the cute little orange peppers, which I've actually been turning these into powder as well, like a little bell pepper powder, and I really like that. The one variety I haven't been super impressed with peppers this year that I grew for the first time was poblanos. They're not like bad or anything, but I'm not overly impressed by them. Here we have a bell pepper, another bell pepper, got another one. Like some of these are a little bit smaller, but they still look beautiful. But here's the hibiscus in the front, and you can see just how many pods we have almost ready for harvest. All right, guys, well, I think that is going to conclude the October garden tour for 2024. I honestly only think I've done one, maybe two October garden tours in the whole time I've done garden tours, and I want to say I've done it for 4 or 5 seasons. I started my garden tour series in 2020, so yeah, I can't believe how many things are still holding on. Like I said, we roughly have 3 or 4 weeks left of the gardening season. If we get more than that, I will be completely shocked. But the next few weeks are just going to be monitoring what's in here, harvesting what I can, trying to still put back some more things. I really hope I can find vinegar because I would like to do one more round of pickled okra. But I've just absolutely loved sharing this garden season with you guys, and I really hope you enjoyed seeing all of the garden tours throughout this year. I will still be doing gardening content over the next few weeks. Really, gardening here doesn't truly end minus like maybe a 6 to 8 week period for me, because I will be starting my onion seeds at the end of October. I'm gonna be doing I will be doing a ton of different garden planning over the next like 6 to 8 weeks, trying to prepare for the beginning of the year. And then the beginning of the year, we do a lot of seed starting. So right now I'm really just entering the time of finishing up one garden and preparing for the next. Like I said, I am going to order a handful of seeds over this week to kind of stock back up on a few of my favorites and maybe look at what might be new. But yeah, I've just really enjoyed spending the 2024 season with you guys, and I really hope you enjoyed seeing the garden through all of its different changes throughout this year. We will still be planting garlic in a few weeks, but as always, thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye.